Contribution, it's about 20% of our revenues come from automotive, yeah. Sorry? Chennai Metro, we have several products. We have in their cabins of Chennai Metro, they use fire-rated glazing so that if there is a fire in the subway, we would be able to do that. We are working with Alstom to develop solutions for the metro, which is Alstom has a large factory on the Sri City. So we are working with them. It's a work in progress. Then there's a whole lot of lacquered glasses and other glasses which are used in the metro. Yeah, metro has been a good customer for us, not only in Chennai, but in many parts of India. There are at least 10 plus metros where our products are available. We are focusing a lot on fire safety products and lacquered products and others. Yeah.
What's the capacity of the third unit? And
yeah, I think, as I said, that it's a very large float, and the capacity is determined by the multiple products that we make. So it's very difficult for me to say one single capacity. So we've decided not to talk about the capacity. All I can say is, in India, we have, for every 2 tons of capacity in India, we have more than 1 tons of capacity. And this contributes to that, yeah. Thank you.
When you say largest plant, is it determined by the capacity or by the size of the glass that you make?
Largest is normally by the capacity, yeah. There are 3 things. There is capacity, there is product mix, and there is a size range. In almost all of this is at least within the Sangamam world, because there are, within the organized players, we have a knowledge, but there are quite a few in China where we don't know the details. So it's very difficult to say what they have and what they don't have. Yeah, remember there are 3 plants. The first plant is a float plant, which makes the raw glass. It gets converted, it's coated in the magnetron. A good part of the magnetron is for exports. Then we also make the advanced architectural products like fire safety and double glaze unit and bulletproof, where there's an even higher percentage is exported. So we have the entire value chain, starting from sand to the final product. Yeah. And by and large, we've been exporting more added value products, value-added products than commodity from India. It makes sense. Would you like to say something? The slowdown. I think there are 2 things which is happening. One is the growth rate of the construction industry. We saw, I mean, to be honest, we saw the first 9 months the construction industry was doing better than we thought. But definitely in the last 3 months, we have seen some kind of a subtle deceleration in large format buildings. But the residential sector is really is some area where we are also focusing, because we have a lot of unique solutions, not just glass. For instance, in the residence today, we provide the glazing, the windows are the glazing. We also provide the ceilings through our gypsum, gyprock facilities, where we have a very strong position. And then we are the largest player there in that. Then we provide solutions for the interiors, partitions and glass and gypsum partitions, shower partitions and other things. So we have a suite of solutions in the real estate space. And we are not seeing our slowdown impacting us, because there is also an increase in the per capita consumption. So even if there is a, let's say that the industry is decelerating, they're using more of our products, whether it's glass or gypsum or solutions products, they're using more of that. So it's difficult for us to separate these 2 out. And you know that in real estate and construction, there is not high quality data yet available.
So if I can add something to that, I mean, the difference between growth and going along with the growth and what Santanam described as penetration. Really, we have a suite of products, a number of products, which typically today are not, may not be used. In fact, glass, as Santanam mentioned, inside homes, interiors, is still got a huge, there's a huge opportunity to grow. Or plasterboard inside residential homes, there's a huge opportunity, and this is what is happening. So there is a significant change in the practices, and this is what, from a supplier point of view, this is what we're trying to bring to India across the products that we are involved in today.
So this 700 crore investment, where will it go exactly? And the question
Which 700 crores?
the recently announced
Okay, the 720 crores will go here and a little bit in Perundurai
Okay.
and some in Thiruvallur and some could be in our Gobain research facility. All those four are covered.
To do what? What will they do?
We would have expansion of our capabilities, new product lines and new investments in some of the new lines.
And the one question to the chairman is, are we coming to an end of all your investments, or the investments are still going to keep on happening?
Oh, no. We are going to, it has been a great journey for the last 20 years. I think India has been one of the fastest growing countries in Gobain. And first, there is growth. And second, there is what Anand Majan just said, this penetration. And today, we still are at a very low penetration rate of our products per head compared to what we have in many countries. And as, there is a more wealth being built, there is more of our solutions, they are easier to handle. So I think that we have a long journey, we are just at the start of our journey in India.
For 2008, your net sales in India was 7,000 crores. What will be in 2019?
Sorry, 2018.
18, your net sales was 7,000 crore. That was your that is what your...
So, yeah, so we've been growing. I mean, partly we have to grow with the economy, partly it also depends, as you know, on inflation. Sales depends on inflation. So there's no, we're not going to tell you what our sales are going to be. But on average, we've been growing in recent years, even when inflation has been low, at 10+% per annum. And that's the way we'll go. Another number that we have often talked about is now we have reached a high, in fact, if you go back 20 years, then you'll see that that growth has been on a low base at nearly a 19% per annum compounded over the last 20 years to reach 7,000, but from a low base. Now we're at 7,000. We're not going to grow at 19% because that's not being realistic. But I think we can grow at 10% at least, and and that's our plan. And that will mean 20 years from now, we will triple our sales. 10 years from now, 10 years from now, we will triple our sales. And that's an ambition. It's not you can't say it's a plan, but it's an ambition that is supported by Saint-Gobain. And to go back to your question, that we cannot do unless we keep investing.
Thank you.
So essentially tripling in the next 10 years. It's broadly positive. We have not had a challenge on the GST, the VAT introduction. So it has been broadly positive for the industry. We haven't had even during the month when it was introduced, which was July 2016, we didn't have very significant deceleration in sales or something like that. The industry has adapted. Okay, having said that, if GST is truly implemented for real estate, we would benefit even more, because then there would be, today it is stopping at some level, therefore the ultimate consumer is not necessarily benefiting. So I'm sure that in the coming years, it may not happen so soon. In the coming years, real estate will come under GST. But from our cost point of view, one of the most important challenge that we have is natural gas is not under GST. I think the government has been talking about it. Almost everyone in the government is keen to have natural gas coming under GST. This would be a very major benefit to the entire industry, not just us, because once we move to natural gas, which will be by end of this year, then this cascading of the natural gas taxation will stop. Okay. Having said that, this has been talked about, the GST Council is open and other thing, but this requires some more deliberation amongst the GST Council, because some of the states are benefiting a lot by the current VAT system, so they have to be given alternatives. So once that happens, so therefore two things: real estate GST and LNG GST are the two things which will make a big difference to this. And ultimately, for instance, when GST came, the thing was 31%. Excise duty plus VAT together was 31%. It's now come to 18%. I think July 1st, 1 p.m., 1 a.m., we started invoicing at 18%. So we were able to smoothly transfer. So that has reduced the burden on the consumers to some extent. And I'm sure that the next one would be when we have the pass-through for LNG, pass-through, and then the real estate also gets it. So those are two things here.
Sir, a couple of questions here. On the consistent investment in India, does it translate into more job creation here? And latest investment, how much job it can create? One.
So,
and the other thing is that from the overall group perspective, the investment, does it mean that the parent company has not taken any money out of the country, or it is fresh money is coming? What is that?
okay, I'll answer these two questions. I think actually more importantly, the second part of the question Anand Mahajan can answer. So the first part of the question is what job creation. So essentially the three new investments that we have made would add about 400 direct and indirect employment. But I just want you to understand, employment is a multiplier effect. Okay, we are in the construction industry, which has the highest multiplier on the economy in terms of both jobs. So we feed the construction industry. We have not really done a study as to say how much second order employment that we are generating. But really the first order employment that we generate would be 400 direct and indirect. And that's really what we had committed to the thing. For the second one, in terms of Saint-Gobain,
before that, I had one more question to them. In a days of protectionism is raising its ugly head all over the world, no? I mean, what is the point in putting all your eggs in one basket like in Sriperumbudur? Does it make any sense, or is it wiser to spread it across?
Well, in India first, we don't have everything in here. We have, if I take glass in India, we have also now significant plant in Rajasthan and another one in Gujarat. But the majority of what we do in Saint-Gobain generally doesn't travel very far. So we talked about export, and what Santanam said is that for export, we export value-added products, specialties, but the vast majority of what we do in one region is sold in that region at Saint-Gobain level. So we are not affected significantly by what's going on from that standpoint. And the best protection for us is to produce in the various countries where we want to sell. As far as your former question, initially, of course, we sent money from Europe, from France, to start our journey in India. But I would say that in the last few years, now India is self-funding. The investments we are making in India are funded from the operations we have in India.
And, I think you meant are we also declaring dividends out of India. So, so we have one public company, public limited company, which is Grindwell Norton. So Grindwell Norton being a very profitable public company, we do declare dividends, but then Saint-Gobain's ownership is 51% and the dividend is for everyone. But from the rest, which is a private limited, Saint-Gobain India Private Limited, which is where all this investment is, we have declared in the past one small dividend, but since then, basically we are using the cash to fund our investments here, and that will continue in the near term. At some point, when we have such surplus cash generation, then we will think of dividends. Sorry?
Tripling the ambitious target of tripling the investment in the sales in 10 years. Does it call for fresh investment through younger generation, or you need to?
It will be through our own generation. We've been, actually it's 4 years now. This entire investment is come from our generation, local generation of cash.
So basically the parents have told you to stretch out what you can do it, that's it,
Yeah, I mean, there are global, I mean, it's for the there are obviously global priorities and so on. But, yeah, I mean, it's.
What I can tell you is that the opportunities to generate returns from our investments in India are good. So I always, when these guys are proposing to add additional investments in India, generally they receive a favorable answer.
Mr. Santhanam, what's your investment in Andhra?
Oh, at this moment, we have a small investment where we make our sand plant is located in Andhra. We also have a silicon carbide investment which is nearly 40 years old. And there is currently, we are discussing with the government about the future investments, and to start with the gypsum plasterboard investment is being discussed at this point in time with the Andhra Pradesh government.
Outlay will be?
Sorry?
Investment will be?
We actually haven't a well-defined plan yet. I think we are negotiating on the land and so on. But Andhra is another, we are in various parts of the country. Andhra is another state which has, Andhra, Telangana, all of them are attractive destinations again. And I think, as the gentleman said, if we're going to triple our sales, we will be investing in it, and certainly we'll be investing in various parts.
Figure is out as 350 crore. How far that is true?
Sorry?
Investment will be around 300, 350 crore.
So if we do, and we do not yet have a, we've internally also not approved a plasterboard. I know I've heard that there is talk about it. Yes, a plasterboard plant today of that kind of, depending on the size and configuration and all that, will be of approximately that investment. And I'm only not being clearer than this because really we do not have yet an internal internally approved project.
Mr. Santhanam, I know you're a continuous process industry.
Yeah.
And we also know that you prefer to operate out of seismic zones which are less prone to earthquake and tremors, because glass manufacturing is very, very directly linked to seismic activity. So conventional wisdom would suggest that you already have one in Chennai, one in Gujarat, one in Rajasthan, and glass being a very bulky material. Can we expect that for the east of India, you're looking at something else there going forward? Because moving glass from all these 3 points to the eastern market may be a very, very bulky and very expensive stuff.
Yeah, I think at least not in the near future. We don't know what happens after 5 years, but very clearly that this site is close to saturation. We have a very large site in Bhiwadi, Rajasthan. We have a very large site in Gujarat. So I think it makes sense for us to be able to expand in these periods and saturate the demand. And by and large, in any product in India, 90% of the demand is north, south, and west. Roughly 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and about 8 to 10% of the demand is in the east. When the demand catches up, I'm sure that we'll find some opportunities there. But at least in the foreseeable future, we don't have a clear plan for that, at least for the next 5 years.
So is this the largest or an important part of Saint Gobain's value addition products? Is it Chennai unit? I think you moved a lot from 1 to 500 times whatever exhibited. I see value-added products contribute a
Yeah,
major chunk.
I think
So how-
let's say in Europe, there are multiple locations where value addition is done. So you will have a plant which is making fire safety glazing, which will be located in one place. It may choose to buy its basic raw float from someone else. You could have coaters which are located in different places, advanced coaters, and you could have these insulated glazing units located in different pockets. So that's historical. I don't think in a single site this level of value addition has been done here. Maybe I can ask Mr. Pera and Rishal.
I think this is probably today the biggest, for architectural glass, this is probably the biggest capabilities we have. Single place where we have the largest amount of different capabilities, I think is in Chennai today.
So, and do you see such demand coming in the domestic market also? Because I believe its export is a major chunk in that.
No, not the export. I think we have primarily invest for domestic, especially the things. What we said is a lot of the exports that we do in India comes out of these plants because there is extremely, it makes all the value added products. You know, every large site like this or the ones that we have in Bhiwadi at Jagadia will go through an evolutionary process. So I'm sure that at some point in time we'll have an additional investments coming in Bhiwadi, for instance. Bhiwadi, we have added a laminated line for windshields. So once we start adding up, then those are the ones then we prefer to export. But it is still advantageous to export out of Chennai because it makes value-added products. It is also close to the port. So other two are far away from the port. Okay, Jagadia is not too far away, but Bhiwadi is quite far. So they naturally will cater to it. We are also, as the chairman said, glass and many of the building materials that we have are highly regional products. So we will rather support the national demand in this region from south, from the west from those plants, and from the north from that plant, but maybe very unique value-added products we may make it in one location and do it, ship it out where the freight costs and other things are much lower. Yeah, the logistics costs are less as a percentage of the value.
Hey, can you just give me another update? I mean, I didn't actually get here. I didn't
Sorry.
actually get your point of LNG coming in from Ennore to here.
Okay,
I mean,
fine.
can you give me something?
Correct. I'll tell you what is our plan. We are working very closely with Indian Oil Corporation. In my avatar and CII, I've talked about it extensively, so I cannot do that as Gobain Glass MD. I think LNG is the best possible fuel that Tamil Nadu can have. We have missed this bus in the past because we've been somewhat bullheaded about it. I think now the LNG terminal, I'm told that it's going to be inaugurated by the sometime in the immediate thing. IOC has put a very large thing. Globally, for the next at least 4 or 5 years, there is abundance of gas, largely coming out of the US. And apart from that, the carbon footprint comes down dramatically when you use LNG. I think the chairman has referred to it. So we believe that by end of this year, LNG would be available. Maybe initially by road, later on by, ideally it should come by pipe. And that's really what you guys have to really encourage the powers be to do that. No, I don't speak to the Chief Minister every day, sir. I'm sorry. We will say that. We have said that. And I think it's important that it's more than the Chief Minister. We have to work through the supply chain of the LNG. Indian Oil Corporation is very clear. They will support us with the LNG in tankers and later on with this. As they step up, to answer your question, we'll first do the new F5 float, then our second float, and then we'll go to the first float by end of next year. So by 2020, all 3 floats will be on LNG. It does 2 things. One is it makes it much more efficient in terms of the carbon footprint. We will have less particulate emissions, all of that, even though we are well below the limits set by global and Indian standards. The second one is it will also improve the average quality of the glass. And so it has several benefits. So once we have the thing, but what you must ask for is a pipeline in Tamil Nadu.
globally, most of our plants worldwide, when we can use natural gas, are using natural gas. So here is more an exception, and we hope we can.
Gujarat is on natural gas, and Bhiwadi is on natural gas, and so in order to meet all the environment and other thing, we don't use the normal furnace oil, we use a low sulfur furnace oil, and we are well below the norms here. Yeah.
So water, you say water.
It's a one. I don't think any one of us can predict the oil. Did you predict that the oil will come down to from 86 when it went up and everybody said that it's working, it'll come down to 55 or something like that? So it's very difficult to predict because it is related to the gas is priced somewhat related to the Brent. There are two indices. There is a Henry Hub index, which is HHI, and then there is a Brent index. We are in discussion with IOC. I really can't say anything. It is better for us to run it with natural gas because it's less carbon footprint, I think, which is close to our chairman's heart, and better quality of, we already have very good quality here, it will become even better. So these are two important things, and then management of this complexity of furnace oil, heating it, and then all of that comes down. So therefore, I think environmentally it's far superior. That's why we prefer the natural gas here. So in fact, I think Saint-Gobain would prefer in any new site that we go, unless you have natural gas, I don't think the corporate would approve an investment. So it's corporate's investment would be dictated by whether you will have access to natural gas. And when we say access, we have to have 20-year access because we can't put up a line because even 1 minute disturbance here can cause a lot of challenges to the quality as well as to the stability of the line.
So coming to water, are you?
Can someone give him the microphone, please? Yeah.
So given the kind of a temperature you say politically, both in the state as well as the center with the elections around the corner, what kind of a confidence your parents have in India as a country in terms of investment?
We've been here 20 years. Santanam and I have been working in industrial setups in India for me 40 years. I think governments go up and down. There are changes in states, changes at the center. And I think from a Saint-Gobain perspective, we have a 20-year track record. So there are always things that happen around the world. I think India is one of the better places till today to be in. And I don't think that's going to change unless India changes dramatically, and I don't think that's going to happen. So I think given our experience and our track record, and given that Saint-Gobain is a global company and has seen a lot worse, I think that there is, in my mind, from an India perspective, I think it will be business as usual. I'm not sure you want to.
No, I fully agree. I would say that, there are geopolitical risks everywhere in the world. And from that standpoint, in my rating, India is probably lower than average. That doesn't mean that we don't, we can have problems at some point, but I mean, we would have problems in many countries. So I think that for us, we are investor for the long run, and we are spreading our risk in various geographic areas. But from that standpoint, India has been receiving, in terms of investments in the last 10 years, more than its share, and we are, as I said, that's one of the countries who are growing the fastest.
And if I may add, India is a diversified portfolio itself. I don't mean our products, I mean regionally. And that's the way we should view India.
Mr. Anand, can you put a figure on what will be the Saint-Gobain's investment plans over the next 3 years, 5 years?
It's very difficult to
approximate.
No, I mean at the rate, if you just use the same data that we've shared with you. If we've invested let's say 7,500 crores in the last 5 years, and we want to grow our sales at that, you have to invest at a higher rate than that in 10 years. So you just divide that number, 7,000, by 10, you get 700. Now, I'm not saying every year it's going to be that kind of number, but it gives you an idea of the kind of investment that will be required. And some years it will be less, some years it will be more.
So 3,500 crore over the next 5 years?
Sorry?
3,500 crore over the next 5 years, 7 into 5?
I mean, you can assume whatever. I mean, it's arithmetic. So it's a large, I mean, if we want to grow, we'll have to invest. And each of these kind of things, you know, as Santanam shared with you, costs 1,000 crores. We're not going to do that every year.
One question, please.
Yeah.
One question. Santanam, you made a very interesting point about Neyveli providing you the basic silica. How large can it be? You have done already some work, I have seen some work done by St. Gobain
Sure.
in beneficiating the sand.
Correct. So basically, Neyveli is an open cast mine, as you all know. Their primary job is to take out the lignite. And what is interesting is, on top of the lignite layer, a few meters is sand which can be used for glass grade. And by itself, it's extremely good. But when they are mining lignite, which is 100 times more than the amount of sand that is on top, it gets mixed up. At the moment, it's kind of stored outside. And if any of you go to Neyveli, you'll find several hills. They are artificial hills because they have been, the sand that has been mined has been heaped, and you have several hills that are there. So we always knew, even 20 years ago, we knew that this is a good quality sand, but it's very complex because we have to work with Neyveli, whose primary job is to mine lignite. So Neyveli Lignite Corporation has agreed to mine it more selectively, and that waste sand they will dedicate it to companies such as us. And so we have developed a unique beneficiation process where we can take that waste sand, which is mixed with lignite, mixed with several contaminants, mostly physical contaminants, and we are able to do a multi-stage beneficiation process. We already have such a process. We have a plant very close to Neyveli, just on the outskirts of Neyveli, we have a plant. So what we now need is the Tamil Nadu government and the Neyveli and us to sit and agree on the logistics and the licensing and other things, because royalty, licensing, logistics issues have to be solved. I think the Tamil Nadu government is very, very supportive. Neyveli is also supportive. Very soon, I'm sure that we'll have a positive news on that. But this is very important because the quantum of sand available there is massive. It's many times in excess of at least our needs. And if this is available, then the glass industry, many other glass industry like the bottle plants, we don't have a bottling industry anymore globally. So all of that can benefit from that. So therefore, it's not just for the architectural glass that will be useful, it will also be useful for bottling plant. Then if there are some very innovative processes for separating out the clay, I think all of you know that Neyveli and Vadalur in that area is where the first of the ceramic units came in Tamil Nadu. I think they were pioneers way ahead of time. They were making porcelain thing. If some people can actually take the clay and beneficiate it, then can also fund ceramic industries. There's a lot that can be done. But let's at the moment take it step by step. All we want is the glass grade sand that is above the mine to be given separately to us, and therefore we'll be able to use it. So this is an important thing. And as I mentioned, that this is very different from the construction grade sand that is required. So the glass grade silica, if you use it in the building, you won't be able to live in that building because it doesn't have the bonding that is required to make concrete. Technically, yes.
Where do you source it?
என்னதுங்க சொல்லுங்க. டெஃபினட்டா இங்க இருக்கிறவங்களே நிறைய பேர் தமிழ்நாட்டில இருந்து வராங்க.
So where do you source your glass now? In the center, sir. Where do you source your sand now? Sorry.
If I tell you, you will be shocked.
Let me be.
Okay, we source it north of Chennai. If you really see, the entire Coromandel coast has got glass grade sand. Neyveli, like that, there are many things. We source it. We source it from Gujarat. Okay, and we also source it from Egypt. So that's the level of importance that we attach to this Neyveli coming in. So annually in this site would be approximately 450,000 tons, 400,000 tons, yeah.
Sir, last one question from me. The water, right? We are heading towards the worst drought this summer. Are you self-sufficient with all these things, or are you going to shut?
Yeah, 40%, correct. I think the chairman was saying that. So 40%, let's say that you have a monsoon like what we have, a good southwest monsoon and a deficient, completely deficient northwest, 40% of our needs can be met. Okay, and we are fully equipped to receive the treated sewerage water from Coimbatore. If you know that for the last 10 years, we've been talking about a treated sewerage that is of the Coimbatore plant, and SIPCOT and Tirupur Area Development Corporation, all of them are working on that. If they deliver us the treated sewerage, we are equipped to use that. Okay, and so these are the things, and we believe we are better equipped than many other companies, but I don't think we can bet against nature. If you have a regular monsoon, nearly 70% of our requirements can be met from the roof itself. Yeah.
Will you require to shut your factory because of water problems this summer?
Sorry?
Will you require to shut your factory because of water drought this summer?
We cannot shut our factories. The furnaces cannot be shut. It's environmentally and economically a disaster if we shut our lines. More environmentally, because it's a very complex process.
Okay.
Our furnaces are like a Lego brick made up of tens of thousands of refractories, which at 1200 to 1600 in equilibrium. They are just a Lego brick. So when you bring down the temperature below a certain critical point, they contract anomalously. We can't afford that. That's an environmental and ecological and also other things. So therefore we are very, very careful. We will keep the thing running. Just want to tell you, a lot of our water requirements also is for domestic consumption. The people in this site use more water than the plants. Because we are, even though we are in a water-stressed city, I don't think all of us use water judiciously in our own livelihood. So for running the plant, we may not need more than 40% of this total requirement. A good part of the requirement is for this. Our gardening comes out of this sewerage treatment water. We have been consistently investing on